Welcome to PatsCast. I'm Brad Whitaker. Good to be with you. I am so impressed with this Patriots draft. It has been textbook what I was hoping for with Mike Vrabel and Elliott Wolf paired up together. And look, we'll have to see how it ultimately plays out, but focusing almost entirely on offense, at least early on, focusing on offense, plugging the glaring hole of left tackle, adding some real weapons for Drake May, Trevion Henderson, Kyle Williams, adding one of the best halfbacks in the draft, the best separator, wide receiver, and then bolstering the O-line again with a center/left guard late last night, and then really bolstering the defense on day 3 with some real high-value draft picks. There was one reach in here, in my opinion, but the other picks were excellent in terms of value and where the Patriots were able to get some of these defensive players at. And also addressing special teams. They took a kicker a little bit earlier than I was expecting, but, you know, the Patriots, they now have 2 picks early in the 7th round. The best kicker's probably going to go somewhere in the 6th or the 7th, so it made sense to take him early in the 6th round when they had the chance. But we'll recap what the Patriots have done so far on day 3. You want to watch day 1, day 2, check out those earlier podcasts, and not going to go over their 7th round picks, which are coming up. We'll do a full recap when all is said and done. But the Patriots headed into day 3 with an early 4th round pick, selecting Craig Woodson at 106th overall, the safety out of the University of California. Now, Woodson, as I said, there was one reach in here, and that was this guy, Craig Woodson. Immediately I had to Google, is he the son of Charles Woodson? He is not related at all to Charles Woodson, so that is not the case. But he was ranked 188th on the NFL consensus big board, and the Patriots, they took him at 106. So, yeah, this was probably the one reach, but you know, they probably projected he would go well before that consensus big board projection, and that's why the Patriots took him with their first pick on day 3. And this is a very versatile slot safety type player that can play all around the field, strong safety, free safety. I think he will compete for that traditional free safety role. You know, as I talked about on this podcast over the last few days, that is one of the sneaky glaring holes that the Patriots still have ever since Devin McCourty left. He is a better fit at strong safety, in my opinion, or at least he has the build of a strong safety. 6 foot tall, 200 pounds, explosive downhill trigger with textbook tackling, limits yards after the catch in the open field, really times blitzes well, accelerates off the edge. You can put him on the edge. He's also a very good special teams guy, who I think is going to have an impact there right away. Fluid hips and back pedal for taking up tight ends on the seam routes. High IQ in the zone. All these guys the Patriots have drafted are high IQ leaders, captains, real, character guys that Mike Vrabel is trying to get, and Craig Woodson certainly fits that mold. And reads routes and funnels receivers very well. Really just an excellent defensive player. Like I said, he might not be the best fit at free safety, although I think he will compete for that job. You know, he does have limited long speed, ran a 4.45 40, which is good, right? But that's not exactly elite speed for a free safety. You want a free safety to be a 200, 400 meter dash runner. And, he has struggled at times against, vertical slot receivers. So putting him in that role, I'm not sure. I'm sure he'll compete, but this also raises the alarm bells, I'm sure, for both Kyle Dugger and Jabril Peppers. We know Dugger has been a bit underwhelming of recent years. He was the one player that I was hoping the Patriots wouldn't sign to a long-term contract extension last offseason when they signed literally everybody to return back with the team. Dugger was the one guy I was hoping they might be willing to let go just because it would have been expensive, and it is expensive. And Dugger's a good player and all, but he makes a lot of mistakes out there, and there's some glaring film from this past season. He's not Mike Vrabel's guy. Mike Vrabel didn't draft Kyle Dugger. And then there's also Jabril Peppers with the character stuff that happened last year, and he got out of it fine, but who knows how that's going to be a fit in Mike Vrabel's culture. So it's possible this guy is your strong safety of the future, and I think he is a better fit there than as a traditional free safety. But like I said, he's a very versatile player, the type of guy who is going to be able to compete for the free safety job and maybe be a strong safety of the future, a guy you can line up on the edge, someone that can play special teams very effectively, can take on tight ends. Excellent player, but bit of a reach at 106. So this was the guy clearly that Mike Vrabel and the Patriots coveted. Makes sense. Versatile, physical, leader, high character guy, high football IQ. Just probably the only reach selection, at least of this draft so far, in my opinion. Then we move on to their next selection, which was in the 4th round. They actually traded up to 137. The Patriots traded from 144 to 137 and dealt away their last 7th round pick, which was 238th overall. So all those assets that they built up in recent years or in the last year or so, starting with the Matthew Judon trade and etc., helped them be able to make this move and take the player that they coveted, which was Joshua Farmer, the massive defensive tackle out of Florida State. 6'3", so not the tallest, but 205 pounds. Played all 4 years at Florida State, was a 4-star recruit, 41 games, almost 1,300 snaps, 74 tackles, 10 sacks throughout his time at Florida State. And this is a guy that was not a reach. On the big board, he was 86th overall, and the Patriots took him at 137. So huge value with this selection. He also spent, and he did a top 30 visit with the Patriots. He spent about 30 minutes chatting up Milton Williams, the other defensive tackle that the Patriots added. So this is just a depth piece in case it doesn't work out with Christian Barmore and the health concerns there with the blood clots. Presumably he would be third on deck there with Milton Williams, Christian Barmore, and then you have him in there. But they're going to rotate players a lot on that defensive line. We know that's something Mike Vrabel likes to do, and this is a really good player. Explosive first step, push-pull swim moves, disrupt interior linemen, heavy hands, load pad level reset at the line of scrimmage, dominated at the University of Florida State, or Florida State University with leverage, high athleticism, closes space quickly for a guy that weighs over 300 pounds. Why did he fall? Well, inconsistent pad level negates power, struggles at times versus double teams, lacks a refined pass rush plan, wasted rushes with counters. You can coach that stuff up. And it also says late block shedding, zone scheme struggles, limit run stopping impact. But overall, he's a good tackler, physical guy, very athletic for a guy of his size. A great defensive tackle depth piece to add there. You're addressing safety, maybe not a traditional free safety, but with the Craig Woodson pick, who you probably could have gotten later in my opinion, but you bolster that defense there, and then you add some depth at the defensive tackle spot. Patriots are going to have a pass rush this year, which was non-existent last season under Gerard Mayo and DeMarcus Covington. So with their next selection, really happy with this move. This was a guy I talked about late last night on the podcast as a potential pick in the 4th round. They ended up getting him in the 5th round with their 146th overall pick, and that is the edge rusher Braden Swinson out of LSU. Another high-value pick, was even higher on the big board than Joshua Farmer, who I just talked about, 71st overall, and the Patriots took him at 146. So another excellent value steal. You know, a lot of teams, they're prioritizing offensive line, they're prioritizing receiver, and these defensive players really can fall into the later rounds, and you can get real value here, and that's what Braden Swinson is. Played his last year at LSU, was at Oregon for 3 seasons before that, so he had a full season, competing in practice day after day against Will Campbell, has nothing but great things to say about Will Campbell in his post-draft interview. Really disruptive edge rusher. A guy that has an elite pass rush arsenal, inside counters, quick chops, speed to power moves that dominate tackles, explosive get off and bend flattens the edge, 8.5 sacks in 2024. This guy's ready for the NFL. High motor in pursuit, chases plays sideline to sideline, stunts, drops in coverage, can spy on mobile QBs just with his athleticism. really great selection here for the Patriots. The reason why he fell a little bit, does have a very light frame at only 255 pounds. He's 6'4", 255 pounds, so has the height for an edge rusher, but very skinny, so that may lead to struggles at times against larger tackles or even in run-heavy schemes when he's trying to take down these big power rushers. Inconsistent edge setting creates cutback lanes, can be weak at times versus double teams, and lacks the mass to anchor consistently. So his size is probably the reason the Patriots were able to acquire him ultimately in the 5th round. But again, bolstering that defensive line, this is a guy who is good enough to start right away opposite Keon White and going up against Will Campbell again in practice. So there's some continuity, and that's important for two rookies. This is a big adjustment going from college to the NFL. Will Campbell going up against Braden Swinson this last year. He's going to see that years ahead now in New England, and going to make life a little bit more comfortable for both of those players as they transition to the NFL. 2 LSU Tigers added, my alma mater there. So great to see that. Braden Swinson, again, a guy that was 71st overall on the big board. Patriots drafted him at 146 overall. So maybe there's some red flags there, but from what I read, he looks to be high character guy, a good leader, really excellent player out of LSU to pair with Will Campbell in practice day after day as they've done this past year. So that's what the Patriots did, addressing defense early on in day 3. Then they made another move in the 6th round. They had a late 5th round pick, 171st overall. They traded that back, took the 182nd pick early in the 6th round, and also added a late 7th round pick, or early mid 7th round pick, 228. So they had the 238th overall pick, and they basically upgraded that again after trading it away to the 228th overall pick. So again, all the criticism we've had of Elliott Wolf, he's done an excellent job. These were brilliant trades that the Patriots made. They took some assets late so they can move up and take a player like Joshua Farmer, who they really coveted. And then they still were able to trade back and get their late 7th rounder. That's an even better pick than the one that they had before. So the Patriots traded back their late 5th round pick, and then the early 6th round selected Andres Borregales, the place kicker out of the University of Miami. And this is a guy who I had mocked to the Patriots going in the 7th round. He's considered to be the best kicker in this draft. Hit 95% of so-called clutch kicks in college. Only missed 1 kick his last year at the University of Miami, and that happened in the first week of the season, so has a really good kicking streak going at the moment. All around, Patriots have John Parker Romo on the roster, and he's probably going to be cut or be a practice squad type kicker. Played in the UFL and the XFL here in San Antonio. Not a very consistent kicker in terms of accuracy, but does have a good foot. If Borregales is getting drafted early in the 6th round, it's basically his job at this point, unless he looks really awful in training camp in the preseason. But I'm sure there will still be a competition there. Again, a bit early than I would have liked to see the Patriots take a kicker, but he's considered the best kicker in this draft and, can hit kicks from 50-plus yards very consistently. His career long is only 56 yards, but he just hasn't had the opportunity from 60-plus. Capable of making those. I think the biggest drawback to him is he is a bit undersized, which is not the end of the world for a kicker, but you got to get it over the line. He's also played in South Florida, so he really doesn't have much experience kicking the ball in cold weather, which we know is important in New England. But he is considered a clutch kicker, which is very important, and kickers are high-value picks because they put real points on the board. And Patriots took the best kicker in this draft. Like I said, would have preferred they'd taken him in the 7th round, but the best kicker in the draft is probably going to go somewhere in the mid to late 6th round most years. So the Patriots just said, hey, maybe we're reaching a little bit here, taking a kicker early, but now we guarantee we're drafting the best kicker in the draft, and we filled the last glaring hole on the roster on special teams because they didn't have a kicker other than John Parker Romo, who most of us don't expect to be their kicker this season. So, excellent job by the Patriots so far. Dressing the offense early on, really bolstering that defense. 2 very high-value picks with Farms and Braden Swinson, Will Campbell's teammate from LSU. Also, what Elliott Wolf did, trading away Matthew Judon in the preseason last year. The players that turned into were Jared Wilson, the best center in the draft, who they selected at the end of day 2, and Braden Swinson, a very good edge rusher who we just talked about. They also had the Chicago Bears 4th-round pick next year. Excellent work there by Elliott Wolf, trading away Matthew Judon and getting Jared Wilson, Braden Swinson, and a future 4th-round pick in return. That's old Bill Belichick stuff, right? That's when Bill Belichick was actually good at the draft. It's been a while. I mean, he was always good at drafting defense, but this is the type of stuff that he would do to get value in return for trading away a real elite player like Matthew Judon, who wasn't elite this year. So it was ultimately the right decision. But that's it for this episode of PatsCast. Like I said, the Patriots at the moment have 2 7th-round picks coming up. We'll cover it all and the previous picks with one final last draft recap, making sense of all of the Patriots picks, and of course, the podcast we know everyone's waiting for, which is undrafted free agents. That'll be coming up as well. You're not going to want to miss it.